was the night before Christmas, and instead of going to the pub, myself and Craig are sitting here recording the AV Club. Hello and welcome to this week's edition, Christmas Eve edition. My name is Shane Brennan, and joined by Craig Rigdon. Craig, Merry Christmas. I see you're dressed in the proper attire. You brought the Christmas jumper to the show. I'm still wearing a regular old hoodie. So
yeah, we're almost there for a slate of exciting games. I
was going to say, will you watch these Christmas Day games? Because it's the one day a year I just will not get away with having sport on the TV. If my mother sees it, I'm even trying to the Dallas Cowboys are on at 6:00. I'm gone. That's it. I'm bags out of the house, gone. And I was originally looking forward to watching watching the late one between the Chiefs and the Broncos, but that seems like it's a bit of a dead duck, isn't it?
Yeah. So normally I can get away with watching it on an iPad on my lap, but I'm never ever going to be promoted to the main TV on Christmas Day. Not over some of the films that are on during the day.
No, EastEnders, Gavin, Stacey, they have it locked in. The NFL isn't getting anywhere near that as much as they as much as they are trying. Although I'm sure there will be plenty of people looking into those games. At the end of the show, we will be doing a preview of those three Christmas Day games as the Commanders face the Cowboys, the Vikings face the Lions, and the Chiefs face the Broncos. Only one of those has got playoff implications, but I think that will be the tastiest one. So we'll get into that in a minute. But I suppose before we get started, by the way, a reminder that the AV Club comes to you in association with the TapHouse Bar and Grill in Ranelagh this Sunday. I believe there will be a lot of Steelers fans watching as the Steelers play against the Browns, but you can go there and watch Red Zone anytime. This is a great time of the year to do it. People are off work, could come out and hang out on a Sunday, maybe even stay up late to watch Sunday Night Football between the 49ers and the Bears. And it's, as we're waiting for Santa Claus, I think it's the guys in Santa Clara we have to talk about. And these are being very much an overlooked team, considering they're sitting with an 11-4 record. I mean, it's so funny watching Monday Night Football the other night. It was a real story of two teams who have chosen, one has chosen the wrong half to get hot of the season. The Colts were such a hot team in the first half of the year. We were talking about how great their ownership was. They had that all-in trade with Sauce Gardner. They're 1-5 since that all-in trade, that one win being in Germany. They haven't won a game in America since Sauce Gardner has come into the building. Whereas the 49ers are on a real hot streak right now. You actually look at the list of games. I mean, they put up 48 points against the Colts, 37 against the Titans, 26 against the Browns the previous week. They haven't lost a game. They haven't lost a game in 4, I think. The last time they lost was against the Texans against the Rams earlier in the early part of November. And a great stat as well, Thomas Morstead, the punter, hasn't had to punt in the month of December. And they've only played 2 games in the month of December. That's still a crazy stat to say. I mean, this is a game here where we're talking with Philip Rivers, and he looked mobile. He was able to actually get things done, but I don't know to what extent it's just the in the defense has let 49ers run all over them, or the fact that as much as we talk about Mac Jones being the great backup that he was, that really did the job well. Once Brock Purdy's back, you actually look that he's performing at a really, really high level now. 5 touchdown passes on the night for Brock Purdy out of just 34 attempted passes, which is pretty good. Efficiency right there. So this 49ers team are coming hot at the right time, and they have a Sunday night matchup coming this Sunday against the Bears, and that's going to be a hugely important game for the NFC top seed. And it's very, very difficult to see the back against the Niners right now because their offense in particular is playing so good.
Yeah, and I think you kind of have to focus on that offense and just laud them for how well they are playing. Obviously, they were going up against the Colts team without Javarius Ward, no Sauce Gardner, as you've already said. So when you look at what they have as from a pass catching perspective versus what the Colts had from a defensive back perspective, it was always going to be a pass heavy game for them. And Brock Purdy is dealing at the moment. Obviously, he did have the interception in the game. He also had the potential fumble, and I'm sure there'll be a few Christmas beers on Luke Farrell's doorstep from Brock Purdy for turning what was a horrendous fumble into a positive gain, which was one of the crazier plays. But we can talk about their offense and how well it's doing. You said they're 5 touchdowns, 4 different receivers as well. It could have been 5, and I personally think they should have challenged the Tunges touchdown. I thought he had both feet in and possession of the ball quite clearly. Didn't really matter because the next play, obviously, he picks out McCaffrey for McCaffrey's second receiving touchdown of the night. But very, very good. My my big worry for the 49ers, and I have been harsh on the 49ers. I think, if you go back a couple of months, I said that they would struggle to make the playoffs, but Purdy has come in hot. But if they go to the big game or end up winning it, I think the offense will get all the plaudits, because that defense feels a bit average to me. Obviously, they're without Nick Bosa on that pass rush, and they haven't really been able to light it up. Their linebackers is weaker than you'd probably like for a Super Bowl defense. And then the defensive backs just give up too many plays. You talk about Philip Rivers, he went 227 yards for 2 touchdowns, and unfortunately a pick six, which was, that ended the game pretty much there. But Philip Rivers has been quietly dealing, but really against a team who want to be and potentially could be in the Super Bowl, you would like them to maybe wrap up Rivers a bit more than they did.
Yeah, and what's interesting is like Rivers. Even there's a lot of situations as when they were really backed up on a 3rd and 26, he sort of had a long head towards Downs. It looked like Downs was given the space to go and make the catch. And look, I mean, there's a lot of teams that you can look at and say, well, have they been sort of inflated a little bit by just the strength of schedule they have, and it's difficult to make that argument for anybody who has to live in the NFC West right now.
Yeah.
But we talk about the Patriots, we talk about the Broncos. I mean, there's people that have looked at the strength of schedule that they have there. It definitely had an impact on the way that we look at them. The NFC West was paired up with the NFC South, I believe, this year. So they've had to play against the Saints and the Panthers, which have made it comparatively easy to compare to what other teams have done. But I don't know. I just can't escape the feeling with this team, though, that when you're watching them, when you have Christian McCaffrey back and fit, and like I said, he had over 100 yards rushing, 2 receiving touchdowns. You look at what else was going on across the team there as well on Monday night. I mean, George Kittle looking pretty solid, was getting a big yards. The yards per play was nearly 7 yards, which was pretty good going. I don't know. I'm starting to come around with the idea that maybe not that the 49ers are Super Bowl bound, and we know they're playoff bound. They could end up being the 1 seed depending on how their next 2 games go against the Chicago Bears and Seattle Seahawks. Talk about games that really make your strength of schedule a lot tougher. Those are the 2 of the best teams in the league right now and hottest teams in the league right now. That would be the truer test than facing the Colts and the Titans, as has been the case in the last 2 games. But nothing breeds confidence like confidence, and confidence you've earned. And they haven't, even the games that have been winning, they haven't been done a Denver on it where they're winning by virtue of the fact that the teams they're playing against has a ridiculous collapse, or they're only eking out these games by 3 points. I mean, I remember watching them against the Cardinals a few weeks ago. This is on the back of losing by 20 points or nearly 20 points to the Rams. They still put up a 41 points on the cards instead of just letting that sort of knock them behind a bit. Even earlier in the season, the games they won against the Falcons, they won by decent score. Against the Saints, they won by decent score. When they lose, but when they win, it's not, you don't feel lucky. They feel like they've won because they play well enough to earn it. I share your concerns of the defense. There's injuries there, but there's a few of these teams, I think, being so supremely coached that they're really squeezing every inch they got out of them. It'd be interesting to know how to put up against Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold the next 2 weeks. And particularly that Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson offense, that will be the toughest challenge they faced, I think, throughout the season. So yeah, I don't know. I can't look back at this Niners team and think that they're just being lucky by virtue of the fact that they're now 11-4. Like, their offense is really playing quite efficient football.
Yeah, but if you look at those 4 losses, you look at the Jags, you look at the Bucks, who are probably the outlier, the Texans and the Rams, and they're potentially all 4 of those are teams that they could end up facing at some point. Obviously, with the AFC teams, it's going to be in the Super Bowl. But you look, they've got the Bucks and the Rams there. They're 2 teams that they've already lost games to. Admittedly, they have won against the Rams this season as well. But they're teams they're going to come up against. And then you've got the next 2 weeks, as you say, Bears, Seahawks, NFC teams. Like, this isn't easy. This is not an easy path to the NFC title game or to the Super Bowl. And actually, there are so many NFC teams that could do this. The fact that they are hot at the moment, does help, but there are other teams as well who are on really good streaks in that NFC division. That anything could happen. Like the next 2 weeks are key. I think if their defense gets shown up against the Bears and the Seahawks, there's a cause for concern. But if they can keep tight and that offense keeps rolling, we could see the 49ers play a home Super Bowl quite easily.
Be the third one this decade. We never had one before 2020, and then we could be going for 3 within 6 years. It's crazy. If only they had more Super Bowls in Kansas City, maybe we actually could have seen more over the last few years. I know it's going to be really interesting. Like, it's funny. I just sent you my picks for the upcoming week, and I still don't know whether it was instinctively or just the fact that I really, really like to look at the Bears. I still pick the Bears to win the Sunday night game. Not to preempt what we're going to be talking about in our preview show later on in the week, but I'm not supremely confident in that. And that's not just because of the fact that last week I was terrible. I was awful on the picks. For context, right? Kieran O'Donovan had 14 correct out of the 16. You and Ben, in fairness, is 13 correct. I had 8 correct. I picked the Dolphins. What a stupid pick that was. I picked the Jets. What a stupid pick that was. I picked the Cowboys, which didn't seem so stupid at the time, but it's come back to bite me. And I picked the Broncos, but I almost feel glad about that one. I've been waiting for someone to come and take them down in my life at some point. So I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't listen to anything I say, or be sort of. I gamble enough my reputation. I wouldn't be gambling with anything else based on what I say in these picks. I've been on a terrible couple of weeks. I think I got 7 out of 16 right the previous week. So I'm not on a heater, as I say.
No, not on the hot streak. Not on the hot streak. However, I'm not on the preview podcast, so I can quite happily talk about my picks. And I have the Bears as well against the 49ers, which is weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just it's unusual. Like, we're talking about the Niners, how much great scoring they are, but geez, the Bears have just been playing some supreme football. I think, especially in the way that they had their fourth quarter comeback against the Packers there that's gone. So, I'm looking forward to this Saturday. By the way, I think this Saturday we have another situation where there is NFL football. I'm looking ahead to the schedule here, and I could see on Saturday we got Chargers, Texans, and Packers, Ravens. But the real thing is happening on Saturday. The biggest event in sports, I think, is a beautiful Pop-Tarts Bowl. I have my Pop-Tarts ready. The box is here. Georgia Tech and BYU playing in the game that I think all the rumors saying that Notre Dame said they didn't want to go to. Do you like these bowls? There was the Xbox Bowl a couple of days ago, and like they were holding up these things with like achievement unlocked. Like the marketing genius on display.
I like a bowl game. I don't watch as much college football as I should do, despite the fact that obviously I loosely follow FSU. Probably because FSU never make it to a bowl game, so I get my pick. But the Pop-Tarts Bowl, you can't beat the Pop-Tarts Bowl for like pizzazz. They take everything about the game and they just turn it up to 11 in the meme sort of stakes, and it just makes it. It really does make it fantastic. Like, it's never going to hold the prestige of like the Rose Bowl, but in the terms of like a bit of fun, there's nothing better. Like, what other like.
No other sport does this.
No, what other game can you watch where they have a giant toaster and will cook a human Pop-Tart at the end of it? Like,
and like just the fact that they had the pre-game. I mean, Coach Brent Key, who I interviewed when he was over for when Georgia Tech was over. He's a serious man. He's a great coach. He's done a really good job with Georgia Tech. They're a top 25 team, as are BYU. That's because that's a bona fide really good game.
Yeah.
And he's there in the press conference. There's the trophies you could win, and he's popping out the pastries and throwing them in. The actual trophy itself, you can put Pop-Tarts in and cook them. Like, this is just, I could see why Kieran Boyle loves it so much, because obviously he's greater access to see it being based in Florida. But my God, it's just, there's no sport that does this more than college football. It's just beautiful.
No, absolutely.
Anyway, as much as we're talking about hot tarts, let's talk about hot seats, let's talk about what's happened with the Baltimore Ravens. I stayed up for this Sunday night football game. I'm interested in your view on this because, we've spoken about, across the AFC North, these two titans of coaching who have been in charge of the Steelers and Ravens for so long. Mike Tomlin, is he going to go? I think we had this conversation here, whether it's a conversation I had with Ben in private or off air about Mike Tomlin, should he move? Could have swapped to the Giants, be good from all this kind of thing. And he basically shut everybody up the last couple of weeks, especially by beating Detroit. And the focus now, the hot seat has moved over to Baltimore, where we look at John Harbaugh, and there's a lot of situations where Baltimore are getting very bad at these fourth quarter collapses, and this isn't the recent problem. This is a problem that's been going on the last couple of years. A lot of these boneheaded plays. There's one particular moment in Sunday night when David Andrews got the ball, and sort of as he had it, he threw it sideways and ended up being intercepted by a Patriots player. Now the play was whistled dead; it didn't actually result in anything. But it's one of those WTF moments, like what's going on here, and you see it so much with the way that like Lamar makes these weird decisions, and is it coaching that's gone on there, and do Baltimore, and you listen to Mike Florio and other people like this, and they seem to suggest that the threat of Harbaugh leaving Baltimore is a more real one than Tomlin in Pittsburgh, because the people in the front office have actually thought about this a couple of times over the past 5 years or so and planned out what a succession plan might look like. But I'm still not sure where I sit in it as to whether it's a wise thing. I mean, are you risking something by trying to push it forward? I mean, like the loss of Mike McDonald to go over to Seattle is a big one. I mean, if he was still in the building, he'd be such an obvious candidate, but he isn't now. So I'm just wondering what your view is on that after, a fairly pitiable fourth quarter collapse against the Patriots. As much as I want to say that the Patriots had a great game, I mean, the Patriots didn't play in a way to make me think that they won't be one and done in the playoffs. The Ravens were there to go and control that game. With 12 minutes left to go, they were 24-12 up, and they didn't do it. And this happens to them all the time.
Yeah, it's an issue that, like you said, has been going on for a long time, this whole fourth quarter collapse side of things. And, you look at it, and John Harbaugh's been asked about this multiple times, and he's never able to really give an answer to it. But I think what we saw on Sunday with that game was just the fact that you look at those last two drives for the Ravens, where they're still up, but the Patriots are on that roll. And the one thing that you could do is put the one person who had been hurting the Patriots throughout the entire game on the field in Derrick Henry. But instead, Baltimore have bizarrely gone to a running back by committee approach when you have arguably one of the best running backs of the last decade on your team, ready to go. No matter what his age is, he's still durable. He's still putting up numbers, and you're not using him. Like, I understand if that's an offensive coordinator's decision, but as a head coach, you have the right to override that. You have the right to do whatever you please in a sense. So I'm just baffled by the fact that John Harbaugh would watch that and go, yeah, that makes perfect sense. We're not going to have our best player out on the field, especially with what happened to Lamar. And I know that the whole Lamar Jackson situation hasn't helped the Ravens this year. And the fact that they're even still within a sniff of the playoffs is pretty remarkable. And it's not the first time they've done it. They did it with Tyler Huntley. In recent years, they were able to get to the playoffs with him, and Huntley weirdly ended up going to a Pro Bowl off the back of that. But I just don't understand it. It looks almost impossible for them to get into the playoffs now, the Ravens, despite the fact that it's mathematically still possible. The Steelers would have to lose to the Browns this weekend. The Ravens would then need to beat the Packers at Lambeau, and then they face off against each other. And the Ravens haven't been great against the Steelers historically over the last few years. So it is difficult. I don't think it's a secret that he's potentially on the hot seat. I think he knows it himself. I did like his response when he was asked about it in the presser, where he said, I tried to do the job, not try to keep the job. I think that's a really good mentality to try and block it out there. Personally, I don't think he'll get let go. But I will leave on does it feel a little bit with John Harbaugh that, the Joker's famous quote of you either die a hero or live long enough to find yourself as the villain. Like, has John Harbaugh been there so long and with the repeated mistakes now become the villain that needs to be, taken?
Yeah. It's unusual when fourth quarter collapses was becoming a part of your DNA, then like it's difficult to say, well, it's a talent issue, or it's or it's a coordinator thing. It's a cultural setup, and he's obviously been, like the cornerstone of that, because he's been there for not too long shy of 20 years now. And that's just who the Ravens have become. I mean, you've Lamar Jackson, MVP, I know he's been having injuries this year, but are you wasting him? I mean, even just look at the decisions they made in that AFC Championship game a couple of years ago against the Chiefs, where they completely deviated from the game plan that worked for them all year round to try and do something completely different, and it blew up in their face. I mean, it's those weird decisions. Like I say, the Patriots are the worst red zone defense in the league, and you don't. And that was a great stat that was put up on the screen with it, which I actually didn't know. And you don't keep using Derrick Henry, who played under Vrabel and will probably know so that inside knowledge as to how to beat a Vrabel defense in the key moments. I just feels like an unusual decision. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Right, we'll quickly before we talk about one or two other things that happened around the league. Let's go to a bit of a this is your baby. You've been really looking at this Pro Bowl vote for a while, right? Headline: the punter is not Daniel Whelan, unfortunately. He did not make the NFC roster. Guess who topped the votes, though? Who, is he playing obviously so good this year, and we all should be giving him, more votes than anybody else. And Mr. Travis Kelce, the top vote getter. Below that was Josh Allen, Derek May, Caleb Williams, and Kevin Byard. I mean, Kelce's been having a vintage year. You'd have to agree. That's obviously where the votes are getting. It's the football people, right?
It's a baffling one. It is a baffling one. I'm not quite sure how he's managed to sort of sneak in there. But actually, no. Let's be honest. We know how he's managed to sneak in there. It has to do with the NFL's favorite pop star of all time,
Cardi B.
Yes, exactly. So it's an odd one. I don't get the Josh Allen above Drake May either, but then again, that was close. Like that.
Drake, the list I saw yesterday had Drake May in. If they listed of Josh Allen being the starter and Drake May being third behind Justin Herbert. Now again, I'm not trying to be too much of a homer here. Obviously, Justin Herbert's playing good football with a broken hand, but like, I whatever about the Josh Allen versus Drake May thing, I wouldn't have him third behind Justin Herbert.
So I think, because obviously what you've got to bear in mind is what we're talking about is the fan selection side of things, and it's only 1/3 of the Pro Bowl vote. You then get players and coaches who have their votes as well, so it kind of all ties in together. So yeah, I'm not sure. I do think, like you said, Justin Herbert's having a good season, but I just think with what we've seen from Drake May so far, it does. He should be above him there. Maybe they're preempting the fact that, Drake May is going to pull out of the Pro Bowl because he's going to be otherwise occupied on that weekend.
Oh, I hope so. I don't believe so. It is interesting though. I mean, like everyone's talking about the MVP race between May, Allen, and Stafford. They put Allen above May on the AFC side of things, but Stafford is still very much the starter in the Pro Bowl on the NFC side of things, with Dak Prescott and Sam Darnold behind him. I think interesting picks. It's kind of difficult to argue with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly fine. I think Dak Prescott is second in passing yards in the league, so you can understand why he's there. The Cowboys have been good-ish this season, but
their offense has been
their offense has been carrying that team. I'll probably get into that a little bit more when we start talking about the Christmas Day games, but yeah, no, I've got no arguments there. I think the one person who should be the most happy with the Pro Bowl fan voting should be our own Connor, because 10 position categories the Bears won. They had the top vote in 10 different categories: the center, cornerback, guard, inside linebacker, punter, running back, return specialist, strong safety, and tackle. They led the league in of all of those categories. And then obviously you've got Caleb Williams, who came fourth in the quarterback race. In the overall, and third in the quarterback race for fan votes. So I think there has been a big perception shift on the Bears this year. And, the Chicagoans have kind of come out in force to back their team for the first time in a while. So fair play to Chicago on that.
Yeah, let's hope it's not like the Arsenal. Like whenever these votes come up, and Arsenal fans always like really like present on Twitter. I don't know if it's that kind of thing. I mean, however, that said, one of my favorite things I've seen over the weekend is some guy from the south side of Chicago was like, "You put Ben Johnson in the roughest area of Chicago, have him covered in diamonds and gold, driving a Benz, and no one's going to go near him. We all respect Ben Johnson. He's the safest man in the city, and that's the vibe shift and culture shift there has been immense. So yeah, so some interesting stuff. Interesting that Achan and James Cook both made it in at the running backs for the AFC. Nothing else really stood out on that. Obviously, Dickert the kicker, and on the NFC side of things, I've lost it. I've lost the NFC. Doesn't matter. It's just I always find it funny how Travis Kelce's still topping by a significant chunk, topping the fan vote. So interesting the people power that comes into play there. Right.
I think there was one more. The biggest baffling decision outside of the Travis Kelce is Zay Flowers getting there. I don't think Zay Flowers has done a lot.
For a team that barely passes the ball, I'm surprised there was any wide receivers from Baltimore getting anywhere near that. I mean, it was Isaiah Likely, it'd be twice as funny and twice as bad. But I mean, still, I'm not quite sure.
Zay Flowers is just an odd one to me. I think there are other receivers who potentially should have got in over him. I know that a lot of people are saying Chris Olave should have got in, but obviously he's on the NFC side, so that doesn't touch AFC side of things. But Zay Flowers, Stephon Diggs. That's a fair shout. I think he's been quite easily the lead receiver for the Patriots. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I would imagine he's got more yards.
Well, the thing about Stephon Diggs though is that he's a big game player. Like on prime time, he'll come out and every season. But then when they're playing against the Bengals at a 1 p.m. kickoff, he's just not as effective. That's just the way he's been. But he knows when the lights are on, and when it's against the Bills or if it's against the Ravens was the other night, he shows up there, which I think is definitely worth factoring into the conversation when we talk about these players.
I'll tell you what. I'll hold my hands up. Zay Flowers has quite quietly got himself a 1,000-yard season, and is the third highest receiver in yards for the AFC. But his 2 touchdowns, maybe that's where, and 3 fumbles is maybe where that drops him for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I still have the perception with a lot of the Ravens offense, they're just big game players, and so many key moments that there's again Isaiah Likely being the perpetrator of so many of those. So I don't know. Interesting one there. I guess it probably causes a lot of Christmas time debates. Who would you have in the Pro Bowl as they're sitting around eating it, choking into their turkey? One final piece of news I want to touch on before we talk about the what's happening on Christmas Day is the news that the Kansas City Chiefs will now become the Kansas Chiefs. Kansas City, of course, being in the state of Missouri. I don't know how much you've seen this, Craig, but basically the news is that, and it's funny, when I was there in Arrowhead Stadium, which is a beautiful facility, I turned around to the Chiefs president, Mark Donovan, I think his name is, and we were talking, Mark Donovan, and we were just having a chat about the future of the Chiefs International and all this kind of thing, and I was like, it's amazing that Arrowhead Stadium was preserved. It's a fantastic place to be. And it is, it's been it was top of my bucket list of NFL stadiums to go visit, more than Lambeau. It genuinely has been somewhere I've always wanted to go, and I went, and it was amazing. It was fantastic. But the future that the Chiefs have seen for themselves is quite different. They're moving. There was a vote a couple of years ago to try and get some sort of renovation for Arrowhead, because what they really want is a roof to be over the stadium so they can use it for things other than football games. As having a roof in the stadium obviously means it's a lot better business. There was a vote went to residents living in the county that Kansas City, Missouri is in. It didn't go through. They've now signed a deal with the state of Kansas. And Kansas City, for anybody who hasn't seen the map, it's literally the metro area is split almost equally east to west. East is Missouri, west is Kansas. So it's all the one city. They're not moving city. It's like, I don't know, it's the equivalent of moving from Tala to Blanchardstown for anybody, for anybody who knows Dublin, which of course you don't, Craig, but imagine somebody listening will. And look, I'm not going to talk about the fact that that the state of Kansas is basically giving them $3 billion, and you can read Joe Pompliano's tweet where he kind of broke down the numbers and all this. And look, I understand, and this is where the league is going when it comes to these indoor stadiums are becoming a lot more popular. The Bills being one team who built a new stadium or building a new stadium, and it's not an indoor stadium. It has a bit of a roof, but it's not enclosed. The AFC West if you include the fact that the Denver Broncos, who again I didn't think needed a new stadium, Mile High is an amazing place, a huge big facility. It looks like they're moving into a new dome stadium as well. All of the AFC West is going to be indoors by 2031, which considering they were all outdoors in 2019 is quite the shift. Like if this is the Chiefs just making the move across state lines and leaving some old stadium or a boarding stadium, I wouldn't care about it. Like, I mean, business is business. This is the NFL. The state of Kansas made the decision. It's not for me to question it. And the funding, the public funding comes to the stadiums. But because you're leaving Arrowhead and it is unique, you actually can't physically, the stands are so steep, you actually can't build them like that anymore. It's against building codes. But you're so close in, and the way it's designed is the reason why it is the loudest outdoor stadium in the world when you stand in the middle. And there's all that it is, and the moments, and the fact that this is a 70,000 seater stadium, the one to replace it with is actually going to have fewer seats, but more luxury boxes. So it means more money, but harder for fans to get to, and all that kind of thing. It's the fact that they're leaving an old stadium, and I don't know if you were ever in old Giant Stadium and saw them make the switch to MetLife. It's something that Brian and Kieran talk about as being something that they wish didn't happen for the Giants. It's I don't know. I will be sad to see Arrowhead not be in the league anymore, and this is just not news that I think many of us were expecting, but not news that I'm welcoming with open arms, because I'm such a fan of Arrowhead Stadium and I love it, and I was really, really wanted to preserve it for as long as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it came out of nowhere for me. When I saw it, I didn't know that was in the offing at all. Obviously, there's been a few different teams who are now pushing the narrative of moving to other places. Obviously, there were the murmurs about the Bears potentially moving away from Soldier Field, and you look at all the newer stadiums and all these amazing dome stadiums, which is fantastic. You know, it gives them the ability to obviously play, like you say, stage more events, etc., and make more money for the team. Then okay, fine, you get it from a financial perspective. I just feel like when you move to a dome, obviously you lose a little bit of the crux of football, which is the weather and the fact that, you know, anything can happen. You've seen the way that the ball is manipulated by the weather, not just in the kicking game, but in the passing game. And, you know, you look at snow games and you see how entertaining they can become, despite the fact that they end up becoming essentially running back versus defense games. You know, there's just so much to the sport that weather gives it, and just adds an extra flavor to the game, so they don't just become the same soulless kind of repeats of everything that goes on. That by moving there or putting a roof on a stadium, you lose so much to it. And I think that's my biggest issue with the thing that's going on in the league at the moment, with all these moves to new stadiums, where these stadiums have state of the art, like jumbotrons in the middle, like SoFi. And don't get me wrong, they are architectural marvels. They really are. But are you losing the kind of old school spirit of the game by just negating weather from the equation?
Yeah, it's a weird. I mean, like I said, when Buffalo built their new stadium, there's a bit of a roof over the seats, but it's an outdoor stadium. I mean, we saw the snow falling when they played against the Bengals last week, and it was, you're like a kid again. This is just a football. It's amazing. And like, obviously, Kansas City are in a part of the country where it does snow, so that's something that they're trying to battle against. And obviously, each situation is different. I mean, like the Titans are building a new stadium and it's domed and it's by far an improvement on the stadium they have now. I don't think anybody's really going to miss the old Nissan Stadium. It's not this historic masterpiece that we all have, great connection to. And the new stadium was great. And yes, it's a dome and it's different. It was different for the Raiders. They made the decision to move to Las Vegas as a city, and you don't build a stadium in the desert without making sure that everybody's shaded. That's just that just makes sense. The Browns is a different one. They're moving to a stadium that's going to have a dome in it as well. I think we're going to get to the point where the AFC East, as it currently stands, is going to be the only division in the league where all four teams play outdoors, which is it's a mad thing to think of. But yeah, not to dwell on it too long. It is the sort of big talking point. My Twitter has been full of it. Probably because my algorithm still has me on a sort of Kansas City buzz. A lot of people, there's chance of people in Kansas City as well who, some of them are like, I can't believe feel stabbed in the back because the team are relocating. I'm like, but they're not really relocating. It's the same city, just going across state lines, and they're doing it because they're getting the money to do it. But it's the indoor. It's just losing Arrowhead Stadium is something I will feel sad at, and I will feel sad the same when Mile High gets replaced by another dome. Like that's what's happening in Denver as well. It's another indoor stadium. So yeah, and I agree with you. You know, more snow, less concerts. That's what football is. That's about. Sorry, the way I said that made it sound like I wasn't talking about actual snow. But anyway, that's I'll let people's minds run off. Okay, so it's funny we're talking about dome stadiums and everything else. We go to Northwest Stadium, which isn't as a dome stadium, but is soon to be replaced with a dome in Washington, D.C., as the Commanders host the Dallas Cowboys. I picked the Cowboys in this game, Craig, because, like I said, their offense is generally be more, been able to get more out of what they're able to do. As much as their defense has been like Swiss cheese at times, as it was the case against the Chargers the weekend. The Chargers did really well on deep passes against the Cowboys last week, and I wonder whether the Commanders might be trying to target that. But I find it very difficult. You know, these divisional games are divisional games, and Thursday night games go a bit weird as well. But I just wonder whether, you know, what version of Commanders we're going to see. Are we going to see the version we saw them play on Sunday Night Football against the Broncos, or the version we've seen in pretty much every other game they played this year?
I think it's very difficult to kind of try and understand what version of the Commanders we are going to get, because we're going to get Josh Johnson or Jeff Driscoll under centre, because Mariota's not going to be playing. Jeff Driscoll, obviously one of those quarterbacks I spoke so fondly about when we were looking at who the Colts could have gone for rather than Phillip Rivers. And Josh Johnson, who's, you know, just the ultimate journeyman. I think he's played for more teams than anybody else in NFL history. And I can't see either of them doing a lot. I know that the Cowboys' defense is an issue. They allow 400 or just under 400 yards of offense a game and 30 points per game, which is among the worst in the league. And it does show why they have struggled this year. And you know, they have allowed more than 30 points in the last 3 games. I don't see that happening on Christmas Day. Like, I just cannot see a way that this Commanders team does anything against the Cowboys. I really don't.
Yeah,
like their defense isn't actually that great either for the Commanders. They're suffered with injuries. They have the oldest average age in the NFL, and you know, it's a long season, and we're right at the end of it. And I'm guessing some of those players are probably getting to that point where they're dealing with little injuries that they can't wait for the off season to kind of rest up. I just can't see any way that this is a competitive game. I just feel like this is going to be one of those games for the Cowboys where they can just, you know, stat pad and you know, just at will just be able to like take the Commanders down to the point where we're likely to see, you know, the backups in at some point in the fourth quarter. That's how I see this game going.
I feel, part of me feels sorry for Netflix and Amazon Prime, because you put up the schedule at the start of the year and you're like, the Commanders, they were in the NFC Championship game last year. Dak Prescott is the highest paid quarterback in the league. Imagine that battle. And you go on to Vikings Lions. These two teams played against each other for the 1 seed last year at the end of the season. And then you go to Broncos Chiefs, which up until like 3 weeks ago looked like could be the battle for the AFC West. And this is going to be the greatest Christmas day ever. And it just isn't looking like
it's not. It is definitely fallen off massively.
Yeah. I have to say that, in fairness, this game here is probably the more interesting of the lot. I mean, the Vikings hosting the Detroit Lions again. That battle of the NFC North. The Lions are still hunting. They're still gunning for the playoffs. They're still in the run. They have to play against the Bears after this, which I think is going to be a really key match. The Vikings will not have JJ McCarthy's hairline fracture in his right hand that he picked up against the Giants, so Max Brosmer will start. You actually just give us a quick one on this. How did Max Brosmer play against the Giants? I didn't see much of that game, mainly because Jackson Dart wasn't much to look at. But like, can we expect much from the Vikings offense here? I think the Lions, we know, are going to be gunning for it. The Vikings, they're 7-8. You might say they got nothing to play for. A winning season is still plenty to play for those players. I'm sure Kevin O'Connell will be trying to get that into the heads of his players. And look, nobody loves it more than making sure your rival can't get into the playoffs. It's always great to do. But with Brosman under center versus the Lions team, who were very close to getting a win against the Steelers last week and probably will have a lot of steam under them. Hopefully they don't have to rely on too many fourth down conversions. It's not going as well for them this year. You know, this one could be, out of these 3 games, this one could be the spiciest.
Yeah, I've got this as the only game that really has anything going for it. I know that there is incentive for the Broncos, but when you look at what the Lions have got to do, they don't control their own destiny in that playoff hunt. They need the Packers to lose out, and they need to win both games. You know, their playoff hopes are wafer thin at the moment, but this should be a gimme. It really should be. They're not facing JJ McCarthy, who was under centre for his first game back after injury for the previous game where they obviously won. Dan Campbell was quite animated during his press conference, saying that this is kind of a get right game after the last time that they faced each other, and he wants them to correct the disciplines of all the disciplinary issues that they had around turnovers and penalties the last time they came up. But you know, Brosma just hasn't translated to the NFL. I know that's kind of a maybe a bit of a harsh thing to say when he's only actually had one start and then half a game against the Giants. But, you know, at Minnesota in college, he set single season school records, 18 touchdowns, 2,828 yards. So he is a quarterback who can sling it around if necessary. But he has, a game and a half and then 2 snaps and 4 snaps in 2 other games. But he threw 4 interceptions against the Seahawks, which were the last kind of stronger team that he played against, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend the Giants are strong, shall we say. But considering he played the entire second half against the Giants, he only had 52 yards. He had no interceptions, no touchdowns, but, a quarterback rating of 69 is not ideal. I'm not going to pretend that Max Brosma is going to go, go into the Minnesota starting lineup again and throw 4 interceptions like he did against the Seahawks. But I'm also not going to pretend that he's all of a sudden going to, pop off 400 yards against the Lions defense, who have not been great this year. But they're still good enough to not, to not be run over by a rookie quarterback who is not exactly lighting the world on light, which is weird because you think with Kevin O'Donnell, with KOC in Kevin O'Connell. There we go. Thank you. You think with Kevin O'Connell, the way that he was able to get what he was able to get out of Sam Darnold, and with what we were saying about Daniel Jones going there, that with Max Brosma he might have been able to get a little bit more, but he just doesn't seem to be able to get anything out of him. But their running game isn't exactly amazing either, so it's not like they can rely on that. And Jordan Mason went down against the Giants. Aaron Jones went out for a little bit against the Giants, so they're pretty banged up as well. I feel sorry for this Vikings team coming into this game. And again, it's in a way I feel sorry for the viewers as well, because like you said, we were expecting something good, and McCarthy goes out and it kind of kills that narrative as well.
Yeah, it does a bit. I mean, look, I think I'd be interested to see how the Vikings defense plays here in terms of like what level of aggression they're going to try and bring to this. I mean, like I always talk about the fact that there's always a bit of Thursday night madness when games take place on Thursday. Of course, that is going to be the case here for both the Vikings and the Lions, having both played on Sunday. But this has to be clean for the Lions and for Dan Campbell to prove to the world that he hasn't completely lost it in the fact that his two coordinators left him, and obviously they're still they're having a rough time in terms of trying to make sure that they sort of get into the playoffs. They need other things to go their way, but to let this game slip or even to let it be close, I think isn't good enough for the Lions, and I think they're going to come out and be strong here. We talk about backup quarterbacks playing for Minnesota. Chris Oladokun, am I saying that correctly, is going to be the starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, because Pat Mahomes went down for an ACL, and the following week Gardner Minshew went out with an ACL. So I'm hoping it's not 3 for 3 for the Chiefs as they play against the Denver Broncos in the aforementioned Arrowhead Stadium. It'd be almost too beautiful if it snowed. If we had a beautiful white Christmas and everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is," it's almost like if you had the Jameis Winston moment out in the snow, and this time in Cleveland, it would almost be too good. Look, Matt Nagy's under pressure. Andy Reid he had to come out and sort of play defense in front of the media today, saying that Matt Nagy is the guy and that he's good enough to be an NFL head coach somewhere, which some people are saying, is that your way of making sure that somebody else gets him so you don't have to tell him any bad news? Which I just found an interesting take. Of course, Pro Bowler Travis Kelce will be on the field for the Chiefs as well. And maybe with a few more days for the backup quarterback to settle in, we might expect better from the Chiefs. And then 9 points to put up against Tennessee. But they're playing against the Denver team who are going for the 1 seed, and I'm just coming off a loss to Jacksonville. I really want to see this game going one way, but who knows? Christmas is, of course, the time of miracles.
It would have to be one of the best Christmas miracles we've ever had, I think, for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going up against, one of the best defenses in the league, the sack leaders in the league. They're atop the AFC on 12-3, and let's not pretend that the Broncos aren't going to take this seriously either, because there are pretty big consequences if they end up, dropping an egg on Christmas Eve evening night our time. Like, they have the Chargers next week. They have the Patriots, who are on the same record as them, gunning for that number 1 seed in the playoffs. The Chargers themselves could end up getting that number 1 seed, obviously depending on results there. They could still end up losing the AFC West divisional title to the Chargers if they lose this one. So I think that they will come into this and Sean Payton won't take this as an automatic win. I think he will take this very seriously. The biggest problem that they're going to have now is that they're going up against a Chiefs team who are a little deflated because of what's happened with the quarterback situation. But Bo Nix has gone from having one of the best games of his career to having questions asked about him yet again after what happened in the Jags game. So it's not plain sailing for this Broncos team, and they do need to make a statement. And this is the best time to do it, in what is American-wise classified as the prime time game on Christmas Day. It's obviously a bit late for us, but they're going to want to put a statement out there. And they kind of have to do it, I think, to try and regain some of the fear that maybe teams are not having when they come up against the Broncos anymore.
Yeah, I think you put it well there. I mean, like, the Broncos have to come up here, and like, to let this one slip, I think would just be like beyond catastrophic, and it will be, and look, again, you're trying to find a way. Is there a mentality in the Chiefs to try and either prove things or spoil things for a rival and all this kind of thing? But that rivalry has been big, but I don't know how much the Chiefs have really been pissed off about it. I can't imagine them coming in and saying, I hate these Broncos, I want to try to take them down. And like the last couple of games they played, especially once they knew they were out, I just think everyone is just playing because they don't want to be injured when they go to Cancun in January. They're just, everyone's just sort of taking it slow. And in Kansas City, if you're not fighting for the Super Bowl, you're not fighting, and that's just the way they've been. And I don't know if Andy Reid is going to or can turn that around. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, we look at what else people in America will be watching. The OKC Thunder and San Antonio Spurs are playing at 7:30, and then we go into Warriors, Mavs, and NBA. I think they might be flicking over to catch a bit of basketball by the time this goes in. I'd be very surprised if the Broncos don't have this sealed up at halftime. I really don't.
No, and this is the home finale, so this is the last time that the Chiefs will play in front of their own fans this season. So you would imagine that from a fan perspective, I can imagine that they would be invested in this. And like you said, there is the AFC West kind of rivalry aspect to it. I know that Chris Jones has come out and said that, he's not going to roll over. He is emphasizing that the team should finish the season strong. I just do feel for that defense because they are going to be under the cosh quite a lot, I would imagine.
Well, funny that Chris Jones says he's not going to roll over. I feel like even when he wasn't trying to roll over, he got rolled over a lot at different parts of the year. So I don't know, man. Again, Christmas miracles happen. I don't know. I think that's it for this week's edition of the AB Club. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Santa coming with a Jackson Dart jersey, or do you what's on the list?
I've already got the Jackson Dart jersey, so we might have to. We'll pivot maybe to Malik Neighbours or Cam Scatterby on Jersey Watch. There are a few Knicks things in there as well. The joys of being a Knicks fan means that I can at least take solace in one New York team making me happy.
Yeah. The New York had to play. They bet Miami, and they're also the NBA Cup champions. Am I right in saying that?
They are indeed.
I don't really follow basketball till after the NFL season is done. Then I tune in for a couple of weeks. I have to say, I'm looking forward to at some point tomorrow. I know there's going to be a video. of some child in England or Ireland opening up their Christmas present, and it's a jersey with like an old jersey with a bad name in the back. Like, I went into a sports shop in Dublin last week. You could still buy Saquon Barkley Giants jerseys and Mac Jones Patriots jerseys, 120 quid a pop, still full price. There's the people running the shops who don't know, and you can just guarantee, an aunt or uncle, but with great intentions, in fairness to them, we'll go in and be like, he's a Patriots fan, I'll get a Patriots jersey, and it has Jones 10 written on the back. So it's got to happen to somebody.
You've got to say, though, out of the two, even as a Giants fan, I think I would prefer the Mac Jones jersey over the Saquon Barkley jersey.
In fairness, Mac Jones didn't go to the Jets. If Mac Jones went to the Jets and won the Super Bowl, that's how I would feel. You know what I mean? So I completely understand that. Well, listen, thank you for all of our listeners for tuning in over the course of the year to this little slot we do on Wednesdays. We will be continuing to do it as we look ahead towards our trip to Santa Clara and San Francisco. It's just over a month now until we're heading west. But thank you very much. We hope everybody has a happy and safe Christmas, and everybody sort of enjoys football. If you get a chance to watch it, I'm sure many people will be glued to the television regardless of who's playing on the Netflix games from 6 o'clock. For now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish on the Bell Show.